The Jamie J. Carr Podcast.
So I'm joined by Sandie Byrne here. I've never spoken to a medium, Sandie, so this is going to be an interesting chat for me. I've already spoke with you over the phone in relation to an event that's happening pretty soon on the 28th of October, please God. How are you getting on, firstly? What's the crack?
Not much crack here. It's just been really, really busy. I have a lot going on. I started writing a book, so I have. So I had a meeting. I had actually a workshop with a publisher based in New York last weekend.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
been busy, kept going. And since the pandemic, sure, you know yourself, since the pandemic started, everyone's kind of looking for something. Everyone's stressed. They're reaching out for something.
Yeah.
So yeah. What about you?
I'm grand, yeah. I'm working away here from home as well, doing live streams and podcasts and whatever I can to keep myself busy.
Cold as well.
No, I'm fine. Does it sound like I have one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I've just got one at the start of this podcast. Who knows? Hopefully not. But sure luck. Sure luck.
Get a COVID test by the end of the week.
That's it. Yeah. So firstly, tell us what a medium is, Sandie. What exactly is a medium? And
okay, so the easiest way is to describe the difference between a psychic and a medium, because a lot of people don't know the difference. And to be fair, like when I was younger, I didn't know the difference either. So think of it in the most simple way. A psychic is someone who reads the energy of the living, and a medium is someone who reads the energy of the dead.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. So a psychic would read you, what's going on in life, what's coming up in the future, whereas the medium talks to people that have died.
So you can't predict the future per se.
I do psychic readings. I do psychic readings as well. I would have started off, when I was smaller, I didn't know that there was anything about seeing spirit, because when you're small and you see spirit, you think everybody can see them. So it was more about developing the psychic side that I used to do with my grandmother, because she used to read tea leaves for people. And her mother, my great-grandmother, she was actually quite well known around. She was from Dundrum in County Tipperary, and people used to queue up outside her house for readings. You know, back in the day before people had phones in their houses, people used to queue up. She used to open her house on a Thursday and a Friday for readings, and people would queue up from 6 o'clock in the morning to see her.
Wow.
So yeah.
You talk about seeing spirits as a kid there. Tell us about that, and yeah, tell us what did you see, and when did you realize you had a gift, and how it all like came to you, like, because that's really interesting to me.
Well, first of all, I don't call it a gift. I call it an ability. And I believe it's an ability that everybody has. But all we need to do, it's like, I liken it to singing. Everybody can sing. Some of us are a lot better at it than others. But if we go to somebody and learn to sing and learn how to control our vocal cords, then we could probably sing. And it's the same way, if we go to someone to learn how to control the energy, then we can communicate with spirit as well. So I don't ever remember a time where I didn't see spirit. Okay. Wow. My first memories would have been when I was quite small. I used to have a little boy that used to come into my room every night when I was going to bed. Well, his mother would bring him in. There was a lady as well, and she'd bring him in and tuck him into the bed beside me. And then she would sit actually on top of the wardrobe. I don't know where that came from, but she would sit on top of the wardrobe and watch the two of us for the night. And then she'd take him away again in the morning. So that would be the earliest memory that I would have had. And then I suppose another memory that sticks out would have been when my grandmother passed when I was only 7. Mm-hmm. She was actually only 56, God love her, when she died. And it was at her funeral that so I could still see her. And everybody was like crying. And I can distinctly remember saying it to my mother, like, because I had 5 uncles. And you know, when you have 5 uncles and you're a child and they're like big men, and to see some of them crying, like, was, you know, completely
a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, why are they crying, ma'am? And she was going, oh, you know, Nanny's gone to live in heaven with Holy God and this. So I was like, but she's not. She's over there beside Granddad, you know. So I could see her. And then one of my uncles said something, and he like, they were all really good to us, but he probably said it sharp just out of grief. Mm-hmm. So I actually sat under the table for the whole rest of the day and I wouldn't come out. So, you know, it was only at that point after my nan died that I realized that not everybody saw what I was seeing. So and that was the first time.
In terms of, you know, seeing the little boy coming into your room, getting tucked in the bed beside you and the mother sitting on the wardrobe, were you scared? Did you say it to your parents, and what did they say, or how did that work?
No, not a bit scared. No, everybody, when we're born first, we're kind of between two worlds, and we see everything that we would have seen before we were born, you know. So it's only kind of as we get older and logic starts to kick in, and we're told that we shouldn't see them, that we start pushing them away. And so I suppose because I came from a family that would have had a background with spiritual connection, I was never told to push it away. I can remember even my grandmother, when a door would just open randomly, and she'd always like put out a chair and say, come in and sit down and have tea with us. So we'd always talk to them as if there was somebody there with us.
Wow.
So, and I've loads of stories, and that's how the idea of the book started, was the stories that my grandmother and my great grandmother told me about their experiences with spirit and all that, and even my grandfather's family. And I know a lot of people probably don't believe that the banshee is real, but my grandfather's family are all O'Briens. You know the way the banshee follows the O's and the Fitzes, I think, because Fitz is the same as an O. And yeah, he used to see the banshee. And back in the day, he was the man, before we had undertakers in every town, he was the man that used to prepare bodies for burial. So there was a funny story about one night that he met the priest. He was cycling up the road in the middle of the night. He hadn't been able to sleep. So he was up, walking around and getting a cup of tea and whatever. And he looked out the window and he saw the banshee leaving the neighbour's house. Now, the neighbour's house was across 3 fields, but he saw her leaving anyway. So he packed his bag and he got on his bike and he was cycling down, and he met the priest. The priest was driving up to get him to come down to prepare the body, but he already knew that this person had died.
Whoa, Jesus Christ. So your whole family really, I know you say it's not a gift, but have the ability and have they back your grandparents and stuff kind of honed in on it and were able to use the ability.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, it's like anything. If you're told that you shouldn't be doing something, or you shouldn't be hearing something or whatever, then you start to stop, you start to push it away. And I did as well in my teenage years. And I can remember I have a first cousin and we were brought up very, very close. She's her dad and my mother are brother and sister. And if I didn't sleep at her house, she slept at my house. We were always together. And I remember one night we were about 15 or 16, and I was out at her house, and she said to me, Sandie, I need to talk to you. She said, I don't know if I should tell anybody. And she said, but I can hear people talking to me. And I said, well, thank God for that, because I can see them. And I thought so we had a good laugh about it anyway. But like that, sometimes we hear something or we experience something and we write it off to coincidence. And I suppose I tend not to, because of the environment that I was brought up in. But, I think the more people, like I posted something on my Facebook page yesterday, just a random thought that came to me yesterday evening. I thought, I'll put that up now and see, does anybody relate to it? And I said, sometimes a sudden overwhelming feeling of sadness or grief can actually mean that you're connecting with the energy of your loved one.
Oh.
Okay. So I just put it up and I said, I see, does anybody relate to that? And I had a couple of people, that commented and said, my God, that's what I've been feeling this week, just randomly, bursting into tears. But it can be any time. But a lot of the time when we feel that sadness, it could be around a birthday or Christmas time or the anniversary of their passing or something, So they're the times that I always feel they're close at all times. I don't want people to think that their loved ones aren't close, but there's better times to connect with them than other times. That makes sense.
Yeah, but particularly at Christmas time, a lot of people tend to have that complaint where they're like, I don't know why, but I just feel like complete shit and I feel sad. And a lot of people can't explain why they feel sad. And you're saying sometimes that can happen because they're connecting with an energy.
Yeah, sometimes you just feel them there and it's unexplainable. Sometimes you might just feel you're being watched or something like this. Okay. Have I time to tell you a story?
Yeah, we've loads of time.
When I was 17, I was working in Germany. I just packed a backpack and went to Germany by myself.
As you do.
As you do. And I just had this thing about Germany. We'd been on a school tour and I love Germany. But and where I was living was kind of it's called the Weinstrasse. So it's Bavaria really. It's all the area where they grow the grapes for the wine. And I was working in a hotel there. And I used to go out running. I was only 17 at the time. I used to go for a run every afternoon when I was off. And I was out one day, and like this was like the middle of nowhere. You could go in like 4 or 5 kilometers any direction. There'd be another little village somewhere, okay? And but there would be nobody around. It was the quietest place ever, and it was like the middle of summer. And it was roasting, and I had the old-fashioned, the beautiful. Remember the old headphones with the foam on them and the steel bit going
Oh,
to
yeah.
plugged into your tape recorder. And I had one of them on my belt, and I was listening away, Simon and Garfunkel, I'll never forget it. And I was running along. Next thing I heard this voice, and it said, "Run." And I thought, now there's somebody behind me acting the maggot telling me to run. And I turned around ready to say, I am running, you fucking idiot, you know. And I turned around and there was nobody there. And I thought, right, I'm cracking up. So anyway, I went on another bit, and this car passed. And you know when a car passes you and it's playing the music so loud, like doof, 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 and you can almost feel the ground moving.
Yeah.
This car drove past slow enough, and it kept going, and I was running on my own business. Next thing I heard this, run now. And I was like, I'm cracking up. And he said, run as quick as you can. So I looked around and there was nobody there, and I thought, there's something up here. So I ran down between 2 vineyards, and they're planted in rows of 2. So you could actually climb in between 2. And like the arms and everything was scratched off me, and my face was scratched. But I got in between the 2, and I stayed there for a minute. I thought, if anybody sees me now, they're going to think I'm cracked. But didn't the car come back? I heard the music coming back. The car turned around at the top of the road and came back, and 5 guys got out. And they were talking German. Now I had a bit of German, but they were talking so fast I couldn't hear I couldn't make out what they were saying. They spent 20 minutes looking for me.
Jesus
They were
Christ.
looking up and down the road, and on both sides of the road there was like vineyards and that. And just as one was coming like right up to where I was, and you know when all you can hear is your heart beating, you know, when you're like that scared. And I was ready to bolt, because you could run down to the back of it and across the fields to where I was living. And just as he was getting towards me, the other fellow at the top called him back. He must have said I was gone or whatever, but they all got back into the car then and took off. And I easily say I waited another 15 minutes before I moved.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you.
The back way, you know. But years later, it didn't dawn on me that much. When you're 17, you kind of take things in your stride. You don't see the danger in things. But years later, I read, actually last year or the year before, I read a story in a magazine about a girl in the States who'd taken a lift from a truck driver. And when they stopped at, a service station to eat and that, and she went into the bathroom and she heard a voice telling her to run. And she was like, I'm cracking up here. She said, there must be somebody outside shouting. And then it said to her, climb out the window and run and don't look back. And she didn't. And she went back in and met him, and they finished their meal and she went off. He kept her for 8 years.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And I thought, do you know what? There, but for the grace of God, go I. You know, I thought I was cracked, but I did it anyway.
And do you know who that was that told you to run? Did you ever find out, or did you ever connect with that
voice? Which was why I thought I was cracking up, because I had lost. I called him my brother. Technically, he was my brother. We were raised together, but he was actually my mother's younger brother. And he was killed in an accident just 3 years before that happened. And he was only 31 when he died. And I'm still to this day convinced it was him.
Jesus Christ, yeah. Whoa, that's an amazing story. And so when you're growing up then, and you get into your teenage years, and you're talking to friends about it, or obviously there's going to be views from the outside who don't understand. How did you cope with that? Did you, like, what happened? Did you try and push it away, as you said earlier, in your teenage years, or were you ever scared or weirded out by it, or was it always something that was just, it felt normal to you and you just kept it feeling normal to you no matter what anybody else said? How did that work out?
Yeah, no, when I was a teenager, definitely tried to push it away, because no teenager wants to be different than their friends.
Yes.
And, you know, no teenager is going to turn around to their friends and say, you know, I see dead people, you know. So, yeah, you pretend it's not happening and you ignore it. But I spent a lot of my teenage years sleeping with my mom, because there was just me, my mom and my sister. And when I was on my own, I'd always get a visit from somebody. I know now that it was mostly my spirit guide, because he was trying to get my attention, and literally he'd pull the duvet off the bed, he'd shake the bed, he'd knock on the wall over my head, whatever, to get my attention. So I used to go out and crawl into the bed with my mum, because if I was in bed with her, it wouldn't happen. So yeah, I spent a lot of years ignoring it, but then of course when I went to Germany, that happened, and that wasn't long after I had arrived there. So I kind of started to think about it more, but I didn't have as many experiences. It's funny, I had more profound experiences when I was living abroad, but not as many. And it was when I moved home then, after being away for a few years, that it all really started to happen regularly again. And but I suppose, do I get negative? When I was small, when I was a teenager, I wouldn't have told people, so I wouldn't have got as much negativity. I would have been kind of afraid a bit of, people coming into my room, keeping me awake, trying to tell me stuff that I didn't want to know.
Which
But
is natural, like, that's a natural thing to be afraid of that. Like,
yeah, I mean, I
I'm
was
I'm
only
I'm 30
14,
years of
15.
age in next month, and the thoughts of that sends shivers up my spine, like, that you could connect with somebody who is passed away, like, is mind boggling to me. And I'm a grown man who's 30 years of age, so
They can be very persistent, even now. Sometimes after a reading, you might have someone that's hanging on a bit, or if you have maybe somebody that's coming the next day, sometimes their loved one is impatient and they're starting to tell you things even before they're coming. And like, I sit up in bed and I say to them, like, I literally turn on the lamp beside the bed and I say, look, when it's dark outside, then I have to rest. Sometimes they forget that the physical body needs to rest because they don't need sleep. And then there's other times, of course, like, I'm reading a lot to the States, so it could be really late at night, and then I'm thinking, God, they're not coming now because I told them when it's dark. So sometimes you're going back on what you say. But I always say to people, because people do say to me, that they heard footsteps outside their room, or there's someone in their room when they're trying to sleep, they can feel someone sitting on the bed. And what I say to them is, tell them that you do need to sleep when you're in bed, but promise them that you'll give them time the following day, because people are more comfortable with it in the daylight than they are in the dark. The dark scares everyone. So if you promise them that if they leave you alone, that you'll give them time the following day, be sure and give it. Otherwise, they will literally haunt you, okay, for the next few nights. And the reason that it's always more prominent at nighttime is because that's the only time that you don't have your mind full of stuff. So as we're going around on a day-to-day basis, like, I'm a mom as well, so I have to think, school uniform, school lunches, what am I putting on for the dinner? I have work as well, and like, you have a million things, you're feeding animals and walking dogs and the whole lot. So it's only when you lie down at nighttime that your mind kind of empties of all that kind of stuff. And that's why it's easier for them to connect with us at nighttime. So it's not that they wait until it gets dark and they want to spook us. And I think that's where the whole thing of it being dark and, nighttime hauntings came from, because it was the only time that spirit can actually communicate with us. So I say, even just take 10 minutes out of your day, once or twice a week. I'm not a big believer in meditating. I'm not a good meditator myself, I have to say. But I say to people, if you can sit down in a quiet room for 10 minutes and just allow whatever thoughts or feelings come and go. Don't try and hold on to anything. Don't try and make sense of it, but let them say what they're trying to say. And eventually it will make sense to you.
I think that's what meditation is as well, isn't it? Just kind of lying down and not being asleep, but just
But if you
relaxing.
say to somebody meditate, they have this vision of sitting in the lotus position, chanting for hours.
Yeah.
But like, meditation could be walking your dog, it could be washing the dishes, like whatever just allows you to go into kind of a trance, just that you're not thinking of all the mundane things that we normally think of. That's meditation, yeah.
So tell us, when you do a reading with somebody, tell us, like, say it's a very successful reading, because I'm sure there's some stronger spirits than the others or stuff like that. I'm not too sure how it works, but as an example of a very positive and good reading, tell us what happens if you're in the room with somebody, in as much detail as you can, just for me, because I'm very new to this world. I've heard of mediums and stuff like that before, but I'm very new to it. So
sure. Well, I mean, there's different ways of reading. I do all my readings online now. Okay, so I don't have anybody coming to me anymore. And I find that it's all about confidence. Like when I first started reading people, I had to hold their hand to connect with them, you know. But as I got more confident, I didn't, but I still had to be in the same room. But then you get more confident and you can do it anywhere. It depends how you connect, right? So if you imagine that you're sitting, okay, so you're on the computer now, if you were sitting opposite me or whatever. So you've heard of the aura, the energy around our body, okay? So if you imagine my aura being so large that I'm wrapping you up in it, okay, and I'm literally pulling the energy from your aura, because your relatives, they don't know me, okay, and they don't really want to talk to me, they want to talk to you. So they're in your aura, that's where their energy lives. So I'm pulling that energy from your aura and connecting with it, okay, and that's exactly how it works. So it doesn't matter how I'm connecting physically. If you're beside me, I could do that with the aura, you know. If you're on the computer, what I'm doing is I'm using the clairvoyance and the clairsentience, okay, and a bit of clairaudience, because I'm listening to the vibration in your voice as well. So very quickly, all those different words, those fancy words that we use, the clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, they're the different ways of connecting. So in the same way that we as human beings, okay, you and I have different ways of connecting. So we have voice and language, which we're using now, okay?
Yeah.
But we also have eye contact, facial expression, hand gestures, body language. You know, we have a lot of different ways that we can make ourselves known to each other. And it's the same with spirit. Okay, so we can see them, we can hear them, we can feel their energy. They can give us different tastes, different sounds. You know, there's different ways, and it depends. And that's what those words mean. Okay, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairguscience, claircognizance. There's lots of different ones, and it's just the different ways. So we don't expect you to know them, but it gives you a word that you can Google. Okay, and it's important. I always tell people it's important. Think of who it is that you're looking to connect with, okay? Because if you're trying to connect, say if you had a relative in spirit that was so shy that talking to them when they were alive was like getting blood out of a stone, okay? Well, what's the point in you going to a medium who can hear them?
Because they won't say feck all, will they?
Exactly, exactly. Or if you go to somebody, like I have an aunt in spirit that didn't like her picture being taken, okay? She hated photographs. So what's the point in me going to a medium who can see her? Because she won't show herself, okay? So think about the person that you're looking to connect with versus the medium that you're going to see, okay? And pick a medium that suits, you know, who you want to connect with. So as I was saying, like when I'm looking at you on the computer screen, I'm looking at the energy around you, your aura, and I'm also taking the vibration from your voice. So a bit of clairaudience in there as well. So there's different ways that we will connect. And literally for me, I'm probably more clairsentient than I am clairvoyant, which means I feel the energy of spirit more than I see them these days. And the reason for that is if a spirit came through and they show me a vision of how they looked when they were alive, okay, they'd only be able to stay a minute or two and then they're gone again because their energy is depleted really, really quickly by producing this vision. And that's why when you hear people telling ghost stories, they say, I only saw a flash of them passing by, because that's all the energy they had to show, okay? But if you can feel them, you'll get a much better reading because they can give you more information, okay? They can stay longer. It doesn't take as much energy to actually, and you know, if you saw them, I mean, if I could produce a vision of you for one of your loved ones of how they looked, I mean, you know what they looked like anyway, so you don't need to see them. You want to know what's going on for them. Who have they met in spirit? Do they know that you bought a new car? Do they know that this happened or that happened, or your child learned to roller skate or whatever it might be? Okay, you want to know, are they seeing these things?
So when you do it and it is a visual one, say, so what is it like and where do you see them? I know these questions are probably very broad in terms of how detailed this is, and you feel free to correct me or whatever. But yeah, so say you're doing a reading and say you are like just for example in the room with the person. Where do you see them and what do they look like? Is it a mist? Is it inside your brain that you see them? Like, is it in your kind of mind, or do you see them physically in the room? Like, sorry, Alexa, turn off. I thought that was a spirit trying to get through to us.
We're receiving a message.
Alexa, turn off. We aren't.
Yeah, word there anyway.
Alexa's trying to get through to us, Sandie. Yeah,
Okay,
so
so it's different. Okay, it's different in every scenario. So if I'm on my own at home and I'm seeing a spirit and I just see them as they looked, okay, and rarely they stay and have a conversation with me. Okay, so in a reading where you're doing maybe a 1 hour reading for somebody, you generally don't see them. Okay, not like a physical manifestation in
okay,
front of you.
okay.
Okay, people that have been to see me, they know I tend to keep my eyes closed a fair bit during a reading. The reason for that is because they show me a lot in my brain.
Okay.
Okay, so what they need to show me in order to get a message across to you, it's like a transfer of thought. What's the name of it? You'd often hear about it in sci-fi movies. It's not clairvoyance.
I know what you're. I
Telepathy.
know the word as well.
Telepathy. Yeah,
Telepathy.
telepathy.
Yes, thank God you got it.
Yeah. And so it's like telepathy. So they're putting all this thought and pictures into my mind, okay? And they're showing me that. But then something I'll just feel, and or it'll just pour out of my mouth, and I don't know why I've said it, but it generally makes sense to the person that's there. And then when you're on stage and you're doing a show and you've got an audience in front of you, then you'll see people walking around the audience.
Wow.
And they might be pointing over to somebody, or they
Wow.
might just put like a light around somebody. Or sometimes you get people and they just kind of hang around at the back because they're a bit shy and they won't come up to you, you know. So in each scenario, it's different. Because obviously when you've got an hour to sit and talk to somebody, you don't want them to manifest a vision because they'll be gone then in 30
Okay.
seconds. You know, you want them to stay longer. So I don't ask them to manifest in that regard. But when you're on stage and each reading has to be done in like 3 to 4 minutes and then move on to somebody else, you're going to want them as clear as you can get them. So you generally find that you've got people standing on stage with you.
That must be magic to be able to see that, like a magic feeling. Like, do you ever get used to it? Are you completely used to it? Or like, say you're looking out onto stage and you do see these lights being shined on people and spirits walking around. Like, I'm trying to visualize it myself in my head. That must be an amazing thing. And do you ever get like, are you just so used to it now, or does it still, do you look out and sometimes it astounds you like that you can see that stuff? Or how does that feel for
You
you?
know,
Like,
I'd hate to say that I'm very complacent, but you do get more used to it, I suppose, you know, as time goes on. And like, I don't know how to describe it, you know, because when you decide that you want to connect to spirit, you kind of have to train yourself to calm down that little bit. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a person that you can't scare, because I scare quite easily, actually. But you know, when I know that I'm to connect with spirit, so maybe before a show or you know before a reading or whatever, I'll try and open up a little bit more. Because were you ever like doing something completely random and you might see like there's somebody walking over to you and you see them in the corner of your eye and then you get a fright and you jump?
yeah,
That
of course.
because when spirit come in, they either come in from your left or your right. Okay.
Oh God.
They do. Okay, so if you imagine it like this, anything you get from the front of your body like this, that's psychic. Anything you get from your left or your right side is mediumistic. Okay. It depends, you know, on the different chakras and how they're communicating. So they'll always come in from that side part of your eye. Okay. So when you get a fright from it, then immediately you close off your energy. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you close your energy, then they're gone. But if you can learn to stay calm and accept them as they walk in, then you'll see them and you'll start communicating with them. So it's about working with the energy. And I do workshops with people just about, you know, controlling your energy and stuff like that. Okay. So not even about how to connect with them per se, but it's just to get that view of them and know that they're there. You know, that's all some people want. They don't want to talk to spirit night, noon, and morning. They just want to connect with their own loved ones every once in a while. So it's just keeping calm.
And can you like do a reading with anybody, would you say? Or is there sometimes that it's not successful and nobody comes through, or what way
There's
that
not many times that it's not successful. To be fair, yes, I've had some where it's not successful. And like I did have one there not so long ago, and it was too soon after the reading, even though it was just gone the 3 months. I say to people, wait at least 3 months after someone dies. But sometimes you're going to get somebody that hasn't grieved properly. Okay. And look, I just think you can't fight with somebody, or you can't argue with someone that hasn't grieved properly. Give them back their money and they'll come back when they're ready. Okay. Sometimes, and it depends as well how the person died. So there's a couple of factors. Okay. One is what's going on in your life at the moment. So if you're completely stressed out over something, if there's a relative in hospital that's dying, okay. So for example, I had one person here some years ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and they were looking to speak to a particular family member. Although we got about 4 or 5 or 6 different family members, we didn't get the one particular one that this person was looking for. So at the end of the reading, I said to her, look, if someone's not here, I can't make it up. I said, I just don't feel them. So it was a daughter looking to communicate with her mother, and she was crying. And I said, look, I'm not going to charge you for the reading. You know, obviously, you know, you say if there's a connection, you can't guarantee a particular person, but she was so upset. And she said to me, look, you know, my sister is on life support in hospital, and I need to know that Mam is there looking out for her. And I said, well, that makes total sense. And she said, like, why? And I said, well, if your daughter was on life support in hospital, where would you be? She said, I'd be with her. And I said, so where do you think your mum is? And she said, she's with her. So I said to her, look, when everything's over, when everything settles down, come back and we'll try again. And she actually came back only 10 days after the funeral. Now, I wouldn't advise that for people, but she did come back, and we connected with both Mam and her sister then. Even though it was just 10 days, you know, after the funeral. Jesus. So there's generally a reason why somebody doesn't come through. Okay. But what was the other part of the question that you asked? I've forgotten the question now. I went off on a tangent talking. I'm terrible like that. Oh yeah, if it doesn't work out, what was your question again? Because it was just like, can you connect with? Can you do it with everybody? Anyone. Really? Yeah. Yeah. And some people then you're just not going to connect with. Like there's people that you meet in this world that you don't like instantly when you meet them. Oh, tell me about it. Yeah. So if you imagine that your energy, it's not that I don't like people when I meet them, but our energies just don't connect. It's mad that you do get that feeling, isn't it? It's sort of an indescribable feeling when you just, it's like you're, I don't know what it is trying to tell you that this person is a bad person for you. Do you know what I mean? Your psychic side. I often get that now. I would never consider myself a psychic or anything, but I people always say I am very intuitive of other people, and sometimes I kind of see it as a little bit of a course, because I always know when somebody is talking shit about me, if that makes sense. Do you know, when like, or if there's a situation where somebody's kind of being sly towards me, but they don't want me to know, I for some reason, and I don't know what it is, and people always say, how did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know what it is or how I know, but I just get a vibe of like, that person is up to something, kind of a vibe. I don't know what it is. It's like, but I've often said it's kind of a course, because I kind of know when somebody doesn't like me. Do you know what I mean? It's like straight away I know that person doesn't like me, even though they'd be smiling and laughing along with me. It's like I know that they just don't like me, and it's a weird thing. And I do think there is. I definitely do agree with you, and I do think there is stuff that we can't explain. Beside somebody, maybe on a train or on a bus or something, and all of a sudden you get like an overwhelming feeling, maybe of sadness or of happiness, or just like confusion or something you're picking up from that person beside you. I remember when my eldest boy, when he went into first year, and he was always smaller than everybody else, God love him. And he was at his locker one day, and he got a top locker, of course. So he was like reaching up to this locker, getting his books. He said, and he came home and he was upset. He said, Ma'am, all of a sudden I got this feeling that I was going to burst out crying, you know. And he's kind of happy-go-lucky fella. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, I just closed the locker door, and I looked up at the fella beside me, and I said to him, you're going to cry, aren't you? And next thing, the fella just roared crying. Jesus. So the two of them went out and they sat down on a bench, and they had a good chat for the lunch hour. And it turned out that something had happened at home that had upset him, and he was carrying it around all day, and it was building up and building up and building up. And he felt that from him just by standing beside him. So I suppose just it's not that somebody said to me, I suppose your kids are raised on a diet of spiritualism, spiritualism. And I said, well, actually, no, we eat
That's
pork
one way of
chops,
putting
we
it.
eat spaghetti bolognese. But it's just, when I suppose I'd be talking about it and that, so he was aware that this feeling was coming from somewhere, that it wasn't just out of nowhere he wanted to cry. Generally, it's because we pick it up off somebody. I'm not saying there's going to be times when we want to cry, just frustration or whatever. But if you all of a sudden get this overwhelming feeling and you've sat down beside a stranger or something, there's lots of programs on. I don't know if you've ever heard of Long Island Medium.
I haven't, no.
So she's a lady, obviously from Long Island in New York. I used to watch her years ago on YouTube, but I don't get a lot of time to watch telly anymore. But she's quite famous. And in her television program, so she goes around, about her day. So she might be checking out the supermarket and she'd be reading a spirit for somebody in the, the lady that's working on the cash register, for example. Or I remember seeing an episode once where she was taking her dog to dog groomers, and all of a sudden she started giving a reading to that lady there. When people say, do you not do that? And I said, no, because you can't do it in Ireland.
Okay, yeah.
Irish people do not take to
No.
knowing their business.
No.
And I remember once in a job I had years ago, we were in the staff canteen and we were just having a chat. And I just turned to this lady and I said, this. And she threw her tea over me.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And I thought, okay, well, you obviously can't do that here.
Yeah.
So it's just not an Irish way. So it's definitely not something that I would do here. And you have to close off from it sometimes. People see a half-hour program, and that's like 2 weeks. Yourself, you make videos. So you've got like 2 weeks of stuff that you mash together to make it look like her life is so full of readings. But you couldn't live like that. No.
Well, it's the same as like I do a lot of, I did pre-COVID, a lot of Vox Pop videos where I'm out on the streets and I'm interviewing people about various questions or whatever it is I'm doing. And at the end of it, I get a 5-minute, maybe 10-minute long video, but I'm standing on the street for, half the day. And a lot of people are telling me to F off, so, and I do be wrecked after it as well. I do be fecked tired, because it takes a lot of your energy chatting to the living. So I can only imagine how much it takes chatting to the dead, Sandie.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to explain that to people. Don't think that your loved ones change just because they die. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you imagine this body like a costume that you take off at the end of a play. Okay. If you imagine your life like a play, and at the end of it, then you zip down the back, you step out of it, and off you go. So they're the same person, the same personality, the same spirit as they always were. They just don't look the same. Okay. So, if your loved one didn't talk to people, didn't talk to strangers when they were alive, well, they're less likely to talk to them now. So go to a medium who can, feel their energy or something. And especially when you're doing a stage show, the amount of people that come up to me afterwards and say, I'm so disappointed that so-and-so didn't come through. And all I say to them then is, oh, would if he was here, they go, my brother, say, for example, I said, oh, if he was here, I said, would he have stood up on the stage and talked in front of all those people? And they go, oh, no way, he was so shy, he wouldn't have done it. And I said, well, why do you expect him to do it now? So, people will spend a lot of money going show after show after show, hoping for their loved one to come through. But if they wouldn't have stood on that stage when they were alive, they're not going to stand on it. Just because.
Okay, yeah. And I think if or when I become a spirit, if that opportunity ever came to get in touch with my family members, and they'll know this if they're watching, I would definitely act the mick with them as well. If I had some sort of powers to act the bollocks or confuse them a little bit, I would definitely do it. I know I would. You know what I mean?
And you get all those jokers through as well. You absolutely do. And even you can tell the lads that have passed, and the ones that would have been kind of flirty with women or were full of themselves, they haven't changed. And you get someone through that, and they'll be doing their hair or fixing their hair, and you get a lot of, I remember in particular one lady who had lost her hair through cancer treatment. So she had no hair when she passed, but her hair was beautiful. And the way she described her hair, her daughter cried because it was actually a photo of her from when she was younger. So she wanted them to remember her as she was when she was, maybe in her 30s or 40s. as opposed to be a woman in her 50s with cancer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so they'll show you the way they want to be remembered. She didn't want to be remembered as a lady who'd lost her hair, so she had the most beautiful hair, you know, and even she had it long when she was younger as well, so she showed her hair lovely and long, you know. So they're going to show you the way they want to be seen. You know, it is amazing, and they're always going to come through. Like, there's no point in them coming through without their sense of humor, if they had the sense of humor, you know. I mean, the guy I told you that was related to me, he was only 31 when he passed, and he had the most wicked sense of humor. And I have some of the best conversations with him. It's harder to perceive an energy of someone that you know. Like, you'll find mediums going to other mediums for readings, because when I'm reading for a complete stranger, and I say, oh my God, you know, he had red hair and he hated it, so he shaved it off, for example. You know, like, I don't know that about that person, but I know about my own relatives. I know all the little quirks, and that they used to wear pink socks on a Sunday and all that kind of stuff, you know. So you're going to know all your own family's little quirks. So
Yeah.
it's harder to get that information. But like, I've had conversations with him where I just ask him yes and no questions, and he'll knock on the wall, you know, to give an answer. So you work out with the spirit what's the best way to communicate with them. And you always come to like some agreement. And there's different ways. Like, I'm always trying out different things, and I'm always doing new courses with different people and trying out different ways of connecting. And I've started this thing where actually I was working with a medium in the States, and she was talking about holding the hand of the spirit, you know, to get their energy closer if they're a quieter person. So I started using that in some readings as well. So it helps.
Mm-hmm.
Every little different thing helps for the different spirits. But you have to bring, and it might just be one sentence in the whole hour. There might just be one sentence that sticks with the person.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll know immediately, my God, that's my father.
And when this is happening, and obviously, like, you've done tons of readings and connected with tons of people. I know you've recently won the award for Ireland's Medium of 2020, which is obviously a huge deal, and congratulations to you on that, Sandie. I know obviously you have to put a lot of work into what you do to get to that position and connect with so many people. But I can imagine, but I can imagine when I'm doing this with somebody. I'm a very emotional person. I don't portray that online or whatever, but I really am. My missus will tell you I'm very sensitive. I watch a film and I'll bawl my eyes out if it's a sad movie. And I can imagine that type of connection that you have with somebody, and you can see in their face and you can feel it in their soul, and they're crying, and you're really giving them something that's a beautiful thing to be able to give to somebody in relation to, you know, reconnecting with somebody who has passed away. And obviously sometimes people feel like there's stuff they didn't say to somebody, or stuff they want to communicate with somebody before they passed and it never happened. And you're doing that, and that's happening, and they're breaking down and in a happy way. Do you ever like sit down and bawl your eyes out with them? Like, I can imagine just breaking down myself if that happens. Like,
I buy
yeah.
them in bulk from Amazon. I don't buy them in single boxes anymore. And, you know, a lot of times you just get stuffed up with emotion, and my throat and my nose, it gets all stuffed up, and you're trying not to cry. But generally, I'll be the first one crying. So whatever the spirit,
oh, really?
Yeah. So whatever the spirit is feeling, I'll be manifesting.
Okay.
And you always know when it's a first connection, when, you know, when somebody's connected with this person for the first time, because the level of emotion, like, you could touch it, you know, it's just there, it's hanging there. And a lot of the times, you know, depending on how long it is after somebody's passed, sometimes they haven't quite come to terms with it, you know, and what's happened. And, you know, sometimes there's regret. You know, not everybody that takes their own life regrets it, but some of them do. Some people have passed in accidents. Then you've got some people, you know, it was a relief to finally let go because they were sick for so long. You know, there's a huge range of emotions that come through. But yeah, I'll be bawling before anybody else, you know. And at first I remember years ago when I started out first, and I was doing a lot of fairs. I used to travel around and do the fairs. And I always used to say, my husband used to come with me, and I used to say, I think people think I'm a bad medium, because everybody cries. I said, I don't see anybody else crying. And he said, no, he said, I'd say that means you're making a connection. So I started emailing people afterwards to say, you were crying when, and I'd say to them, you were crying when you left. Was everything okay for you and whatever? And literally that it just felt their loved one so near them, you know. But like there's been times where someone's literally just sat in front of me and immediately I burst into tears. You know, I'm emotional. You won't be old enough to remember Highway to Heaven. Did you ever see
No.
it was that guy that used to be in
I've heard of it though.
yeah, that guy that used to be in the Little House on the Prairie, and he did it, and it was kind of every week was a sad story. He was an angel, so he was helping somebody out. I used to cry my eyes out watching that, you know. So I'd be the first to be crying.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I always remember this one lady that did come to see me at a fair, and she'd been waiting a while, and you know when you feel like you're getting more and more emotional. When it came to her turn, and she came up and she sat in front of me, and immediately I just started crying, and all this stuff started coming out of my mouth. And you know when information just falls out of your mouth, but it's actually gone through your head, it literally just comes out of your mouth, and you don't know why you're saying it.
I do know. I know that too well, Sandie.
No filter. So, and like I didn't even, because sometimes I'm trying to make sense of the information or whatever, and it just all came spilling out. And she was just roaring crying, and it was someone in her family that had taken their own life, and the circumstances around their dying, not literally how they died, but what was going on at the time. And it just all came spilling out of my mouth. So the two of us, then we had a big hug and everything, and you know, you just feel like you've done something for somebody. And many times you'll give out and say, oh God, I really don't want to talk to anybody today. But then once you're in the reading, the energy is amazing. I can't explain it to you. And just to be able to see somebody's face change, you know, and they think, oh my God, they're actually okay. Because we worry about people that go to spirit. We're still worried about them, you know, even after they're gone. Even though, let me tell you, they get so much more support over there than we get here. We're expected to just pick up and go with it. And we need to find help if we need it. We need to go and seek out a grievance counselor. Is that what they're called? I can't remember. But, you know, a grief counselor. Like we're supposed to go and find those people. But they get all that help over there. They get so much support in the spirit world that they're fine. They're more worried about us over here, you know. And there's a fine line between letting go and moving on. You know, you don't have to let go of somebody necessarily to live your life.
Yeah.
But you have to live at the same time. And the message comes across consistently from spirit, you know. I'm going to do it with you, so do it anyway. You know, especially people that had loads of plans made. You know, the worst thing I always feel is, well, every death is worse. I don't mean to belittle anyone.
Yeah.
But, you know, when somebody's just getting to retirement age and they have all these plans of what they're going to do, and then someone passes away a year or two into the retirement and they don't get to do half of what they planned. And then you have one person here with all these tickets and lists of plans to do, and they're thinking, should I do it anyway? You know, and why not? You know, you can't tell people enough that it's not a dress rehearsal. This is your opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. And sometimes, I mean, you know, a lot of people will be fine and they'll just get one message within their lifetime to know that this person has moved on, they're with so-and-so in spirit and whatnot, and they're okay after that. But then you'll find other people that would come back time after time after time. And it's not that I mind reading for them, but I'm always worried that, you know, that it's not having an effect on their mental health.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm very logical, you know, and I would say, there's only so much they can tell you about themselves, you know, and you ask most Irish people to talk about themselves and they'll go, no, you know, and you'll see it with the different, you know, especially now that I do online an awful lot, you'll see it so much with different nationalities. Americans will talk about themselves all day, no problem, you know, and then you have other places, you know, people like out in the United Arab Emirates and Dubai and those places are hugely into spirituality, you know, but they're very, very conservative and they don't even like telling you if you're right or wrong. And I just go, it doesn't make sense. That's all you want to know, you know. So the different nationalities and the different, I suppose, backgrounds dictate a lot about the kind of information that comes through. But effectively, at the end of the day, there's only so much a person can tell you about themselves. You know, you can go for a reading every 6 months if you like, but they're only going to tell you that they wore, you know, orange socks and green braces and white trousers. They're only going to tell you that so many times.
People are probably just craving that connection, you know, that feeling of being close to the person that has passed as well, I'd say.
It becomes about just confirming that they're seeing what's going on. So if I can confirm something that's happened in this person's life or their child's life or whatever, you know, that's all they're looking for. And the way I describe a reading is it's like having a cup of tea with somebody, okay, or coffee, depending where you're from. So if you're sitting down, if you and I, you know, we're sitting down like we are now, shooting the breeze, and you can give me your opinion on things, but, you know, you're telling me you're not psychic, you know, you're not a prophet, you don't know where life is going to end up. So that's what it's like talking to spirit. They can give you their opinion. It doesn't mean it's gospel. If you want advice about what's happening, then you get a psychic reading. So they're two very different readings. And, you know, a lot of people think that they're mushed up. And they're the readings that, like, I literally can't read for 2 days after I do a reading of both, because like you're going from one side of the energy and tearing yourself across to the other side. And they're very, very different readings. Okay. So, you know, that's the difference, obviously, between the psychic and the medium again. But yeah, really, and I agree with you. It's, as I said to you, sometimes it's just one sentence. You know, and I even had a girl that came one time and it was just that, and she was probably only here 20 or 25 minutes, and I said one thing to her and she said, that's all I needed to know. She said, that's my dad. And she shook my hand and she said, thank you very much.
That was it.
I can't even remember what I said because it was one of those things that just got out of my mouth, you know, and it's so difficult, you know, to know
the emotions that are involved in it is unbelievable. And I can only imagine what it must be like. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for some of the sittings that you do have, because I'm a videographer as well, and I've done a couple of weddings, and I find it extremely difficult to get the shot where the couple are just about to get married and they're looking into each other's eyes, and I'm, you know, really close to them with the camera, and I'm like trying to not cry, you know what I mean? I can, yeah, you know, so I tend to get somebody else to get that shot because I'm too fucking emotional, Sandie. Are you able to do a reading for me now? Is that something that's possible as a quick example?
I was waiting to ask that question because that's the question everybody asks.
I wasn't sure whether that's like, I don't know the correct, maybe that's like not the correct thing to ask a medium on the podcast or whatever, and that's fine if you can't. But I was just,
no, you're grand. It's just. And I was just thinking that when I was coming, I said, God, maybe I should have just taken some time. Because normally what I do before reading is you take maybe 15 or 20 minutes and just throw on a piece of music that you like and try and connect. But does it make sense that I feel that there's a younger male in spirit now, not a child, but someone that's maybe only around the age of 23 or 24 years old and that died very suddenly and very, very tragically?
Yes. Yeah.
And does the name Richard make any sense to you?
No.
That would in some way, so you were thinking of a younger gentleman a minute ago, okay, who would have died very suddenly, very tragically. So the guy you're thinking of, does it make sense that I feel he may have taken his own life?
Possibly.
And if you're thinking of that particular guy, so with him, does the name Richard connect in some way? Not necessarily to you, but to him. Richard, Richie, Dick.
Not really. No, I don't know. Maybe to him, maybe.
Yeah, because it feels more like this name is coming from him for somebody that's still here. Okay. But I want to say that I do feel that now I might be completely wrong and maybe this doesn't connect to you because I just, and I, you know, as I describe it, I say connecting with spirit is literally like if you throw open the front door and you say, is there anybody here who wants to talk to me? You know, that's literally what you do with spirit. So sometimes you're going to get somebody popping in. But I want to say that there is a younger male in spirit. He was around the age of 23 or 24 when he took his own life. And I want to talk about a tattoo here on his arm. Is it your tattoo? No, it's a tattoo that somebody's got for him. It's somebody here. So it might be this Richard character, but someone has a tattoo on this part of their arm that connects to him. So it's like an in-memory tattoo. But it's a lion.
Oh my God. Well, I have a lion tattoo here.
Oh, you have the lion tattoo there. Oh my God, you do. And it's on your left as well, is it?
Yeah.
So who does it make sense? The younger man that took his life that would know you have that tattoo.
He would know I have. He would have known I had that tattoo. Yeah. It's the person I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if it's the person that's coming.
Yeah, I know. I need to get more about him. Okay, Pet. I want to say as well that okay, my energy isn't what it should be today because I had the day off, but spent most of the day in my pajamas. He keeps talking about a little girl that's here. So whether he had a little girl or there would have been a little girl that he would have been quite close to, he keeps talking about a little girl that's here. You're not in your head, so I'm assuming that makes sense. And I also get the feeling from him, it's like he says that I'm to tell you that you're right, that it was just a moment of madness and it was completely ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, it's like we're not really sure if it was an accident or what happened.
It wasn't an accident, but it was just a moment of madness.
Okay.
I feel like he was under the influence of something. So whether he'd taken something or whether he had drink taken.
Yeah.
He was under the influence of something. And it was just a completely ridiculous thought. Now, it wasn't an accident, but it may have been more attention seeking. I'm not convinced he thought he'd die. Okay. But it wasn't an accident, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Did you hurt your back?
I have had back pain lately, but I didn't hurt me back, but I'm sure.
Just something with back pain. No, it's like he says, I'm to tell you that you're an old man. Hurting out your back. Okay. Do you have a jacket or some kind of a top that belonged to him?
Possibly, I think I could have, yeah.
He just kind of says, that he still has, I'm not sure if it's a zip-up hoodie or if it's a zip-up jacket, but it's something like that. And he says, typical of him to hold on to stuff. He never give anything back. Okay, so you had a reputation, God love you. Did you put a cigarette into the coffin with him?
I did. There's a little place where he passed, and I threw a smoke down to him. Yeah.
He just said, I'm to tell you that he has the cigarette you gave him.
Fucking hell.
I thought that might be the coffin, but he's making me emotional now. He says that I'm just to tell you that you need to stand up for yourself a bit more, that you're letting people walk all over you. And he said, that's not like you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm the one that's kicking your ass when you feel it, and I'm pushing you forward. He says, because I think it's like he says, you've got the short straw. Is that the saying? The short straw or the wrong end of the straw? And you've got the wrong end of the straw, whatever it is. And he said, he doesn't like to see you the way you've been these last 7 months. Now, I know the pandemic with everybody 7 months, but this feels like something different.
No, it makes sense. What the fuck?
And also there's a bit of anxiety that's starting to grow on you recently as well. And he says that you're definitely to leave that behind. He said, you're way too young for that. You're way too young for that. So does that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense to me, yeah. Is it possible for me to ask him a question, or does that?
I can't guarantee an answer, but generally what we do is we put it to them, give them a minute or so, and see if we can get an answer back from them.
Ask him, is he still drinking over there?
There's no alcohol over there. No.
Well, I'm sure you'll have something to.
It wasn't you pouring the drink on his grave, it was somebody else. I know you gave him the smoke, but he said someone's tried to give him drink. He said, but no, there's none of that over here. And he said, believe me, he said, I've asked for it. But someone, now I don't drink.
Yeah.
But someone's poured something for him. You know, like you might pour it into the ground or something.
Yeah, everyone's done that for him, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say, is it brandy though and not whiskey? Does that make sense? Brandy. Brandy.
I don't know.
Is there a difference between brandy and whiskey? I don't know. It's just the way he shows me the bottle. It makes me feel more like it might be like not the traditional whiskey, maybe something a little different.
Well, he drink from a shoe, this chap.
Oh, jeez. He says to me, what he's actually gasping for is actually a cup of tea.
Oh.
And if anything, that's what he'd gasp for right now. Just to sit down and have a good chat, a good cup of tea. He's not craving for the drink in the way that he used to. It's a full 6 years now, isn't it, since he's gone?
No, it wouldn't be that long, no.
He takes me back 6 years. Something changed 6 years ago. It's almost like this was the beginning of the end then, 6 years ago.
It's probably around that time when I would have kind of took my own path in life, and I wouldn't have been around them much then. Maybe that's could be what he's trying to say.
This feeling of kind of things finishing at 6 years, your relationship more so than he's in life. But I do feel like this was the beginning of the end as well. So he may have taken a different path. There may have been a lot going on around him at this point. But he does smile at me, and he has got this kind of cheeky, chappy smile, you know, it's kind of like he like that.
Yeah, that's unbelievably like him, that face.
The chin dips down.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Why did he have a scar? Had he been in a fight or something?
I think he had a few scars, yeah.
He says, this is who I was when I was there. He says, I've calmed down a lot. Did you meet his sister not so long ago?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, yeah.
He just talks about you meeting his sister, and I just get the impression that I don't know if you know what's going on for her. It's probably not fair of me to talk. Just feeling that maybe she's a little bit emotionally distant from the family, that there seems to be a lot going on around her. And he says you're on the ball, that you knew straight away when you met her that there was something wrong. And he says it's another thing, but he says getting through to her is like, you know.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
God love him. His mum is still here though, isn't she?
As far as I know.
Now, my feeling is that he is, because he's talking about her like she is here, like I'm not connecting with her. But he talks about her religious side, and, you know, feeling that obviously it came out a bit more after he passed and stuff like this, which can happen. You know, we turn to religion a lot to help us deal with stuff. Some people turn away, some people turn to it. But you wouldn't know her, but I definitely want to talk about something wrong with her hands. I don't know if she sprained her wrist or she's getting arthritis or something, but she seems to consistently have a rosary beads wrapped around her hand, and her right hand as well. And he's just saying, you know, nobody prayed for me when I was there, he said, but I get a lot of prayers now. And he says it cheeky, but at the same time, he's talking about feeling the love through the prayers. So it does benefit him, but he kind of says it cheekily, you know. So it's just his way of letting you know that he's still around his mother and his sister and the family, and kind of looking out for people and what's going on and stuff like that. And he's visited you as well, obviously. So
kind of, if you can, and I don't know how it works, can you ask him, did he like the picture and see this anything like that come back, or does that mean that too?
it's really funny because the minute you said that, I felt like I wanted to vomit, and I don't know why. So I'm sure we haven't got a picture of him vomiting, but is there a picture of him maybe drunk or on a night out or something?
No, not really. Well, there is many pictures like
Oh, I'm
that,
sure
but
there's many, but it's not the one you're talking about.
no,
For
no.
some reason, I just immediately felt like that I was going to vomit. I don't know what it is about that picture. He obviously doesn't like it then. So I don't know, is he clean or polished or something? But he said that's not the him that people would generally remember.
Yeah, he is clean in the picture. It's one of the.
Was it his first communion?
I had just got a new camera and I took a picture of him, and little did I know, like, it was, you know, when you take a picture and you put it on Facebook or whatever, and then you don't see it for years, but it ended up being the picture that was on his coffin. And although he was, passed away, and it's very sad.
Sure.
It was a very proud thing for me to take, because that picture, and that's the one that they wanted to use, and I was asked to print it out and stuff like that, and his family thanked me for taking the picture of him. Yeah.
It's very hard to have a picture of somebody that is facing the camera and you can actually see them.
Yeah, and he had no pictures like that. That was like the only one, and it was like a really headshot, perfect picture, like that I just happened to like just snap and didn't even think about it. And that's why I mentioned that, to see would it resonate with him at all. But it is
it is obviously what he didn't like or didn't want to.
Yeah, it's very I don't think he ever liked any pictures of himself though. So.
Well, there's very few of us that do. There are very few of us that do, and we always tend to pick a picture of somebody in a way that they wouldn't normally be perceived. So he might have been, like, if we leave him to the side for a minute and you talk about anybody else, tend to take a picture of them maybe at a christening or at a wedding or something, and they're dressed up in a way that they wouldn't normally be, and maybe we're better off with a picture of them with their old cardigan on or something, in a way that people remember. Or people often come back and talk about, I think that there's always one picture within a family and everybody has a copy of it. And, a lot of people mention that picture and say, of all the bloody pictures that you could have used, it had to be. And some people love it then, it's very different reactions to different photos when people are talking about different things, So it's just mad, and the different reactions that come through with different things.
Yeah, you're at the blowing my mind there with that. That's mad. I've never had a medium or talked to anybody like yourself before, as I said at the start.
So too much that you wouldn't do it again, though.
No, it's kind of it's a feeling like, how would I describe it? It's like you're talking to them in a way, like over the phone, except it's like, if
you're sitting beside the phone and you said, tell him, ask him.
Yeah. And I suppose that's why it's called a medium,
Exactly.
But, it's very much like that, where you're like, tell him, and what did he say about that? And tell him,
Exactly. No, it's the same thing, And so just because I know I'm probably taking up all of your time.
No, you're okay.
I just want to say to people as well, don't believe in evil spirits. I know that there's people out there that really believe in them and they're scared of Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe in evil spirits.
I was going to ask you that before you continue. I was going to say, have you ever seen or experienced stuff that like is really horrific or horrendous, or that, has stuck with you?
Sometimes you get a premonition about something that would kind of stick with you, and it's very hard to make sense of premonitions. But I say to people, spirits aren't here to hurt you. They have other things to do. Okay. So I don't necessarily, this is the way I look at it. I've this said in a very short video on my YouTube channel. So if you take somebody like, if I had an accident, God forbid, and I lost a leg in this accident, right? Would you envisage me hopping around the afterlife on one leg for eternity?
No.
Because it's a physical thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you take somebody like Hitler or Ted Bundy or something, they arrived on this earth as pure a spirit as you or I, but they went into bodies with a defective brain. So this was like, if you imagine to be a short circuit in the brain, and they ended up doing horrific things. But when they leave and they go back to the spirit life, then they're out of that physical body and they don't have that defect anymore. So then they would have an epiphany and think, oh my God, did I really do that? Okay. And they would have to go on and atone for what they did in the afterlife. But they're not going to spend it coming down here, terrorizing people. They have to make up for it, not be worse. Okay. So everyone has a chance to redeem themselves. So, when people experience something, it tends to be what our mind, I suppose, multiplies it into. So it's like when we're in bed at nighttime. And the reason that we connect at nighttime, as I said earlier, is because it's the only time our mind isn't full of taking something out of the freezer for the dinner or whatever. And so you do tend to sense spirit more at nighttime, but that's not because they're trying to scare you. It's because it's the only time you give them. So for me, even though I do sometimes get harassed at nighttime, but like I would give a lot of time during the daytime hours to spirit. So it wouldn't necessarily be as bad. So I think if you acknowledge them, even if it's to tell them that you've no interest in connecting with them, go find somebody else. But all they're waiting for is that acknowledgement one way or the other, and then they'll go. They're not here to demonize us or to terrorize us or anything like that. Okay, so it's just whatever physical defects we have here that make us bad or cruel or whatever. When we pass over, we don't have those.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So there's a movie called This Is My Father. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't. I probably did. So I'm one of those people that I've seen everything and heard everything, but when it comes to the name, I'm like, I
James
get.
Caan is in it, the guy that was in The Godfather.
I think I have seen it. I think I have. Anyway,
so he's American and he comes back to find his father. But in that movie, there's a gypsy woman, and she puts on people what she calls a cut and come again curse. That's what she calls it in the movie. And so basically, she says it's all like placebo effect. So you put the thought into someone's brain that they're going to trip and they're going to fall, and immediately they start tripping and falling and bumping into things. So it really is the thought of something. So I don't believe in curses, and I have so many people that get in contact and they feel that there's someone's put a curse on them or
oh
someone
really?
told them they were putting a curse on them or whatever. Yeah.
And they ring you to say, "Here, help me get rid of this
Yeah,
course."
what do I do for this or how do I get out of it? And the minute then that I tell them that it's nonsense, then they stop thinking about it and then it doesn't happen anymore.
Whoa.
Well, they don't ring me back anyway. Maybe they just think I'm loopy. Maybe they go looking for somebody else. But I don't believe that anybody can affect your energy, unless you let them.
You should help the Mayo lads. Is it Mayo that have the course on them where they can't win the All Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely.
You should go down to them.
That's going to be something, and I'm not a hurling fan, but I think even Tipperary, whenever they came up against Kilkenny, there was always a thing we can't beat Kilkenny. But the minute they began to believe that they could, they did.
There you go.
So I do believe the power of thought is
So,
a huge thing.
What's your thoughts on religion and heaven and hell and stuff like that? Do you believe in that, or is it a completely different thing? What way does your beliefs tie in with that or not tie in?
I didn't believe in my Catholic religion. I was raised Catholic.
Okay.
I didn't believe in it. But I suppose I have a different view or perception of it from what I learned from spirit. So it's almost like the Hindu belief in that. I believe there's 7 levels of life, if you like. So we're on the 3rd level, and the 2 below us are what we would perceive to be hell, as Catholics. And then above us, there's 4 different levels of what we would perceive to be heaven. So we're living on earth on the 3rd one. So depending on what we achieve or don't achieve when we're here or do bad, we could die and we can move down 1 level below us or 2 level below us. Okay. So if you imagine Hitler and Ted Bundy down at the bottom level, but they can atone for what they've done and they can move up and up and up and up. So the more we develop spiritually, the more we can move up. And a lot of people would believe that the word God actually came from the word good, and it's the good inside us. And this is what kind of develops us, further. So whether there's actually one person, see, I do believe, because it's something I've been told since I was born, that there is a God. So I find it hard not to believe it. But I've listened to a lot of people, and I can see where the word God would have come from the word good, and that it really is the goodness inside us that helps us to develop spiritually. So I really think it just depends. I do numerology, and in numerology we talk a lot about karmic debt. Okay, and what that is, it's whatever you've brought to this world with you. So, you might find, very basic things like, you're bad with money and you need to learn how to control your money and hold on to it and all this kind of stuff. But you will also find that, people tend to find it hard to keep somebody within a relationship, and they get cheated on a lot. And, the thought or the belief is that in a previous life that they would have cheated on somebody. So therefore in this life they get cheated on. Does that make sense? So you always have to kind of reap what you sow and learn what it felt like. There's a famous story, I don't know where you'd find it now, but I remember talking, someone gave a presentation on it when I was on a course one time, and basically it was these two guys. I believe in soul groups, and what that means is every time you come back, you're with the same group of people. They might not necessarily be the same relation to you, but they're the same group of people. So, for example, your sister in this life could have been your mother in a previous life. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So with the same people. And these two friends, as it turned out, they had, well, what happened was one murdered the other. Okay. So one had died and the other fellow was in jail. And they were looking into this because he started to have dreams about things that he was doing with this friend, but never had actually experienced with this friend. So when he did counseling and they agreed to let him do past life regression and everything, it turned out that he had been murdered by the other fella in a past life. So in this life, he murdered him. So there's all kinds of stories like that,
Wow.
and I don't know what you believe it, but if you go looking for them on YouTube, you're going to find loads of stories like that. But, karmic debt. So I don't know, I tend to go off on a bit of a tangent.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's the way I see it. Okay, so there's 7 levels. We go to the top level, but we have to earn our way there. And when you pass over, okay, unless you have been a perfect person that can go right to the top, you're going to have to work on some aspect of your personality, okay, or your life, whatever. So you can choose to do that in spirit, or you can come back and do it here. So that's where reincarnation comes in. And yes, I believe in reincarnation, and I believe we choose it. Okay. So if I was, for example, I don't know, say, for example, if I murdered people, okay, maybe whatever, okay, say it was war and I murdered loads of people or whatever. And so when I go over, I'd have to atone for that. So do I come back here and, make up for it somehow, maybe go to a war-torn country and work with those kind of people? Or do I stay over there and do I help people that are victims of war as they cross over and help them to come to terms with what happened to them? So we'll all have a choice. And this is the way I view things. I mean, in my head, it's logical. It might not be coming across logical.
No, it is. I understand what you're saying.
Logical. And, and I don't mean to bring up suicide a lot, but it's a huge thing in Ireland.
It is, and, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And especially where I live, like Tipperary and Kilkenny, with fairly high rates. And so I would have read a lot over the years. And, without any exceptions, everybody is teamed up with, if you like, someone who's died in the same way. So somebody else who took their own life. So they would help this person to come to terms with how they passed. So, you can choose to stay there instead of coming back here, but in any case, anyone that is being reincarnated, it doesn't happen overnight. So you don't immediately go there and come back. You will still work through a lot of stuff over there. So, and then come back, maybe years down the line.
And Sandie, before I let you go, lots of people, including myself, to an extent, we go through life with this fear of death and this kind of thing that we try to push to the back of our consciousness of our expiration date, which we are all facing. Nobody gets out alive.
Absolutely.
Do you ever get people calling you up about the fear of death? And what would you say to somebody, as somebody who talks to the dead all the time for a living? And what would you say to quell the fear of death? And obviously, I can't really imagine you having a fear of death because you've talked to so many people who have passed. But there's a couple of questions here in one question, which is: do you have a fear of death, or how do you deal with people who maybe call you or get in touch with you about dying and having the fear of death? And does that happen?
Okay, well, I say I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of how I'll die. Okay, because obviously I don't want any pain. So it's how I die that really scares me more. But I've no doubt that in those last moments, of course, like everybody's going to wonder, oh my God, was I right? Is it really that? Was I schizophrenic? Were people right? So there's going to be loads of questions in those last moments. I've no doubt about it. But the minute I see somebody, and as I say, I lost an aunt a few years ago, and for those last maybe 6 or 7 days, she talked about this woman that sat in the chair in the corner of the room. So she wasn't on her own in those last days, and it happens time and time again. And there's so many experiences. So while I'd love to say I'm going to be so brave, I'm sure I'll lose my nerve in those last moments. And I would say the same to anybody, and I said it to my aunt because she said to me, Sandie, what's going to happen? I'm scared, and I just said to her, I said, the minute you see your father, because I would have had a very close relationship with my granddad. And I said to her, the minute you see him, I said, just go to him. I said, don't even look back. I said, you'll have the chance to come back later. But I said, don't be afraid to go. I said, because she'd been in a lot of pain. She'd been very sick. She had cancer. And I just said, just go. I said, don't worry about us. I said, we'll be fine. And, so many people wait to hear those words when they're on their deathbed. All they need to know is that you're going to be fine. And as soon as somebody says that to them, they let go. So everybody will have those few moments in the end, without doubt or question. The ones that should be scared are never scared, like those ones that have murdered somebody or done something really bad in this world. And they're generally not scared. And it's us then that haven't done anything bad that are scared. So I say, don't be scared, because you're going to be met by all those people that you have lost over the years. And I can't wait for that moment. I mean, I can wait because I don't want to leave my kids just yet. But, someday I'm going to have that moment, and I just, can't wait to see them all again. So in one way I look forward to it, but in another way I hope it's a long way off.
Yeah, I totally understand. Well, Sandie, it's been an eye-opening chat with you. I've loved every minute of it, and I could literally sit here and chat to you.
I can't believe we've been talking for
I could chat to you till 12 a.m. about this. I'm fascinated by it. As I said to you on the phone, it's something new to me. I'm not sure what I believe in, but I respect everybody, and I respect everybody's beliefs. And that chat we had with who I think it is, a friend of mine who passed, was unbelievable, and something that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. I'd say that's unbelievable.
And I have to just say, if anybody is watching, that this is the first time I've seen you. You rang me out of the blue there last week, and I didn't know you had a lion tattoo on your arm.
Yeah.
So people are going to say, so she knows him.
You're always going to get that though. It's going to get you're always going to get stuff like that anyway. But yeah, and in terms of then, I'll let you at the end. You can tell people where to go and check you out, and I hope they do. On the 28th of October, fingers crossed, we're going to be doing an event in Kittler's Inn in Kilkenny. It has been it's a historical place that people come all over the world for to visit, as it's meant to be. Now, I don't know the correct phrasing or words for you, Sandie, but it's meant to be haunted by the ghost of Dame Alice Kittler, who was one of the first.
I actually don't know the history of it.
Okay.
We are going to work with a paranormal group, and one of them was on to me during the week, and he said, you Google it, look it up. And I said, no, I don't want to.
Okay. I won't say that, but except for it's meant to be haunted. It's meant to have spirits there. And I'm so grateful to have Sandie, who is going to be coming along on the night, to use some of her abilities and try and connect with and see what the crack is there. And Sandie, I can't wait for you to come along on the night and see what happens. It's going to be great to have you part of the team on the night, and a paranormal investigative team as well. And I just want to say to the people watching, Sandie, I just, as you said, I rang Sandie out of the blue, and we chatted for like half an hour on the phone, and you were so helpful, Sandie, even getting a paranormal team, and you're totally behind the idea. So thank you for that, Sandie. I do very much appreciate it, as I still am, only starting out on this journey that I am here, and I want to do this full time and meet lots of people. I love talking to people, especially people from all different beliefs and values, and you know yourself, everybody's different, and I find it fascinating. So thank you for being so helpful, and I look forward to the 28th of October to see what happens. That will be live here on this channel, everybody. So do, if you're not already, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and you will get all the updates of when we're live and stuff like that. And mark it in your diary, 28th of October. We'll be going live at 8 p.m. till 11:30, and I think Sandie be coming on around 10 p.m. We've to sort out the finer details of that. Sandie, where can people go if they want a reading from you, if they want to check out some of your stuff online? Where do they go?
So my website obviously is the first port of call. It's just sandiebyrne.com, or I'm on Facebook just as Sandie Bryne, and I'm always on Facebook. And it's Sandie, Sandie. Absolutely.
Sandie Byrne.
After Sandie Shaw.
Sandie Shaw.
I don't remember because I don't remember her, but yeah, she was an English singer that represented the UK in the Eurovision and came.
Whoa. Yeah. I thought it was the ham, Shaw's ham.
No. Sandie Shaw, no, she's a British lady.
Very
brilliant. Nice, actually. She sent me a signed photograph for my 40th birthday.
Whoa.
Called after her. Yeah.
Whoa, that's amazing. I named my son after Alex Ferguson, the Manchester United old manager. So if you're watching, Alex, send us over something. Send
him something.
Sandie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope people go over to sandiebyrne.com, isn't it? .com?
Yeah.
Check Sandie out, and on Facebook as well, which you have a massive following on Facebook there. I see your blue tick on the page, and 20,000 people follow you. So continued success to yourself, Sandie, as well. And congratulations on Medium of the Year 2020, which is unbelievable. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll see you on the 28th.
28th it is. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
The Gaming Car Podcast.